My boss was saying, David, you're this company's most trusted financial advisor, while at the same time under his desk he was signing documents for a $2.3 million investment in our rival company. And I was quietly photographing everything. David Morrison, 48 years old, was the chief financial advisor at Pinnacle Industries. For 15 years he had managed the company's financial affairs, knew every number, controlled every account. He was CEO William Bennett's most trusted person, until that Wednesday afternoon when he accidentally saw documents on Bennett's desk. That day he had gone to Bennett's office to drop off financial reports. Bennett was on the phone and acted as if he hadn't seen David, continuing his conversation. Yes, the $2.3 million transfer to Meridian Capital is approved, he was saying. David froze. Meridian Capital was Pinnacle Industries' biggest rival. As David placed the reports on the desk, he scanned the documents lying on the edge of Bennett's desk with his eyes. The top document read, Meridian Capital Investment Agreement, Confidential. Bennett was still on the phone, his back turned to David. David quietly opened his phone's camera and quickly photographed the documents. When Bennett hung up and turned around, David was already ready to leave after dropping off the reports. Yes, Mr. Bennett, Q3 figures are on your desk. Great. You really are this company's most trusted financial advisor, David. I know I can count on you. David smiled. Of course, Mr. Bennett. I always protect the company's interests. What Bennett didn't know was that David had realized he now needed to protect the company's interests from him as well. That evening at home, David examined the photos he had taken. The documents were clear. Bennett had invested a total of $8.7 million in Meridian Capital, in the company that was Pinnacle Industries' biggest rival. This was a clear conflict of interest and illegal. David's wife Jennifer came from the kitchen. You're late today. Is everything all right? David closed his laptop. Yes, just finishing up a report. Jennifer had noticed David's tension. 18 years of marriage couldn't hide such details. David, is there a problem? You've been very distracted lately. David looked at his wife. Jennifer was also an accountant. She would understand the seriousness of the situation, but he didn't know what to do yet. Just some complicated situations at work. Don't worry. The next morning David came to the office early. Bennett hadn't arrived yet. What David had learned in his 15 years at Pinnacle Industries was that people who arrived early learned more. He went to Bennett's desk and searched for documents he couldn't see yesterday. He had keys to Bennett's drawers because as a financial advisor, he needed access to some financial documents. What he found in the bottom drawer was a scandal much bigger than he expected. The investments in Meridian Capital were just the beginning. There were documents showing that Bennett had invested a total of $23.4 million in 3 different rivals of Pinnacle Industries. All secret, all illegal conflicts of interest. David photographed every document, dates, amounts, signatures, evidence that Bennett was betraying his own company. But worse yet, these investments were being made from Pinnacle Industries' own capital. Bennett was transferring his own company's money to competitors. At 8:30 Bennett arrived. David had already returned to his office and started his normal work routine. Good morning, David. You're here early. Good morning, Mr. Bennett. I wanted to finish the Q4 budget estimates. Bennett looked pleased. This is why I trust you. You pay attention to details and think about the company's interests. David nodded. The irony wasn't lost on him. During lunch, David called his old law school friend Michael Torres. Michael was a corporate law specialist. Mike, I'm going to ask you a hypothetical question. If you found out a CEO was secretly investing in his own company's competitors, what would you do? Is this hypothetical, David? David remained silent. Okay, I understand. This is very serious. Conflict of interest, even betrayal of the company. Depending on the amounts, there could even be criminal prosecution. Do you have evidence? Hypothetically, yes. Then you need to be very careful. First understand the situation completely, then evaluate your options. But David, these kinds of situations usually don't get resolved quietly. They grow. Mike was right. This situation would grow. The question was how to protect himself. Over the next 2 weeks, David systematically documented Bennett's secret investments. Every morning he would arrive early, check the documents in Bennett's drawers, and photograph new transfers. At night at home, he compiled this information in a detailed file. Jennifer finally couldn't stand it. David, this can't continue like this. You haven't been sleeping for 2 weeks. You're constantly looking at your phone. Tell me what's happening. David looked at his wife. He knew Jennifer was right. He also knew he could trust her. Jen, I'm going to tell you something, but you can't mention it to anyone. He explained the situation. Bennett's secret investments, illegal transfers, betrayal of the company. Jennifer's face grew increasingly tense as she listened. David, this is very serious. What are you going to do? I don't know. If I report this, I'll finish Bennett. But the company could be damaged too. There are 450 employees. Jennifer put her hand on David's shoulder. But if you don't do anything, Bennett can steal even more money, and you become an accomplice to the crime. What David didn't know was that Bennett had started watching him. The next morning, Bennett called David to his office. David, I need to talk to you. When David entered, there were no documents on Bennett's desk. Everything had been put away. David, I've noticed you've been coming in early lately. Is there a problem? David tried to appear calm. No, I just want to finish the Q4 reports early. Bennett looked at him carefully. David, you've been working at this company for 15 years. I trust you, but trust should be mutual. Of course, Mr. Bennett. Good, because there are some sensitive financial transactions in this company. These transactions are part of the company's high-level strategy. Do you understand? David nodded. Bennett was sending him a message indirectly. These transactions are not discussed with anyone, David, because in a competitive environment, there can be misunderstandings. I understand, Mr. Bennett. Good, I'm counting on your support in this matter. As David left his office, he was experienced enough to understand that Bennett suspected him. He now needed to act more carefully. That evening he talked with Jennifer. I think Bennett suspects me. What will you do? David thought. Maybe it's time. I'll call Mike again. The next day at lunch he met with Mike. David showed him copies of all the documents. My God, David, this is huge. Bennett didn't just create a conflict of interest, he also misused company capital. This is $23 million. What do you recommend? Mike examined the files. You have several options. First option, report to the SEC. Second option, go directly to the board. Third option, confront Bennett. Which is safer? None of them, but the right thing is to report to the SEC. This is a federal crime, David thought. Reporting to the SEC would finish Bennett, but it would also protect him. Give me a few days, Mike. I'll make my decision. But what David didn't know was that Bennett had already taken action. The next Monday morning when David came to the office, Human Resources Director Angela Wright was waiting at his desk. David, there's a morning meeting. They're waiting in the conference room. David felt his heart start beating rapidly. When he entered the conference room, he saw Bennett, Angela, and company lawyer Robert Kim. David, please sit down, Bennett said. David sat. There was a file on the table. David, recently some errors have been detected in financial practices. Documents with your signature. David opened the file. Inside were transfers bearing his own signature, but which he had never seen. Transfers made to Meridian Capital. I didn't sign these, David said. Bennett tried to look sad. David, these signatures were examined by a graphologist. They're your signatures. David examined the documents more closely. The signatures looked very similar, but he knew they were fake. These signatures are fake. I didn't make these transfers. Lawyer Robert Kim spoke. Mr. Morrison, these are very serious accusations. $8.7 million in unauthorized transfers. These are federal crimes. David understood the trap. Bennett had prepared fake documents to make him look guilty. I can prove to you that these signatures are fake. I can have handwriting analysis done. Bennett shook his head. David, unfortunately it's very hard to trust you. In this situation you need to be fired. Also, this situation will be reported to law enforcement. David stood up. This is a trap. You're trying to pin your own illegal investments on me. Bennett acted surprised. What illegal investments, David? Have you lost your mind? David realized then that Bennett had planned everything. The fake documents, the fake signatures, even probably allowing him to become suspicious to set him up. I have evidence, David said. What evidence? Asked lawyer Kim. David pulled out his phone. Photos of your secret investments. Bennett smiled. David looked at the photos on his phone. Bennett was right. His own signature was at the bottom of the documents, but he knew he hadn't signed them. These are fake signatures. David, Angela said, please don't put yourself in a more difficult position. We suggest you resign. In return, we won't start criminal prosecution. David understood the situation. Bennett had acted much more cleverly. He had anticipated his every move, using his own document collection activity to set him up. I won't resign, David said. I'll take this to the end. Bennett's smile grew. Then we'll report to law enforcement, David. This is your choice. As David left the meeting room, he knew his 15-year career was over. But the war wasn't over yet. That evening at home, he told Jennifer everything. He trapped me. Fake signatures, fake documents. He planned everything. Jennifer held her husband's hand. So what will you do now? I don't know. If I go to the police, they won't believe me. They have fake documents. Did you hear what Mike said? David called Mike and explained the situation. David, this is very complex. Bennett is 3 steps ahead of you. But don't give up yet. Sometimes the best defense is offense. What do you mean? Go to the SEC. Report both Bennett and the fake document charges. Open 2 separate files. David thought. This was a risky move, but he had no other choice. The next day, David went to the SEC's New York office. He met with investigator Sarah Chen. Mr. Morrison, you're in the position of being both victim and suspect. This is very complex. David showed all the documents he had. Bennett's real investments, fake documents, timeline analysis. Mr. Morrison, these documents are very detailed, but they're also documents you had access to. How will you prove that you didn't prepare them? David thought. Bank records. These transfers appear in bank records, and I don't have access to those accounts. Chen nodded. That's a good point. We'll investigate. There's one more thing, David said. The security camera in Bennett's office. If I didn't prepare these documents, the cameras will show it. Chen took notes. Mr. Morrison, I'll tell you the truth. This case is very complex, but it's worth investigating for us. We'll give you a few weeks." David felt hopeful for the first time as he left the SEC office, but Bennett wasn't idle either. 2 days later, FBI came to David's house. Agent Mark Sullivan and his team came with a search warrant. "Mr. Morrison, we'll search your house on charges of financial fraud." David looked at Jennifer. "I need to call my lawyer." "Of course you have rights." The FBI searched David's house, computer, phone. They took all the documents David had collected about Bennett. Agent Sullivan asked David, "Mr. Morrison, how did these documents reach you?" David chose to remain silent on his lawyer Mike's advice. "I won't comment until I talk to my lawyer." After the FBI search ended, David and Jennifer were in shock. "David, how did this progress so quickly?" Jennifer asked. "Bennett has connections. He's very powerful." Mike came in the evening and evaluated the situation. "David, Bennett is a much more powerful opponent than you, but don't give up yet. FBI investigation runs independently from SEC investigation, and we have our cards too." "What cards?" "Bank records, Bennett's real account movements. Both FBI and SEC will see these." In the following weeks, a silent war began between David and Bennett. David followed the media every day, waited for news from the SEC, tried to learn about the progress of the FBI investigation. Bennett began to discredit David in the media. He made statements like, "We thought he was a reliable employee, but he tried to rob the company." David's lawyer Mike constantly told him to be patient. "These kinds of cases take time, David, but you did the right thing." 2 months later, David's life changed. SEC investigator Chen called. "Mr. Morrison, I need to meet with you urgently." David went to the SEC office. Chen had a thick file on her desk. "Mr. Morrison, our investigation is complete. Your accusations about Bennett are true. He made $23.4 million in illegal investments, and the documents about you are fake." David breathed a sigh of relief. "How did you find out?" "Bank records. The transfers from Bennett's accounts weren't made with your signature. Digital transfer system was used. Also, security camera recordings didn't show anything against you. So what happens now?" Chen smiled. "Bennett will be arrested, and the charges against you will be dropped." David couldn't believe it. "Really? Also, you'll be awarded under the SEC whistleblower program, 10% of the damage to the company, about $2.3 million. David's world changed. Not only was he cleared, but he was also rewarded. The next morning, the news announced Bennett's arrest. Pinnacle Industries CEO William Bennett arrested on charges of financial fraud and company betrayal. David watched Bennett being taken away in handcuffs on television. It was a strange feeling to see the fall of a man he had respected for 15 years. Jennifer sat beside him. "How do you feel?" David thought. "Justice was served. But I'm not happy. What Bennett did was wrong, but 450 people lost their jobs. You did the right thing, David. If you hadn't stopped him, Bennett would have stolen even more money." A week later, Pinnacle Industries' new CEO Jessica Martinez called David. "Mr. Morrison, could I meet with you? I want you to return to the company." David met with Martinez at the company's new building. "Mr. Morrison, what you did was very brave. You saved the company." "Thank you, Miss Martinez. I'm offering you the CFO position. We need the right person to repair the damage Bennett caused." David considered the offer. Returning to Pinnacle Industries would be the peak of his career, but it also meant living with Bennett's shadow. "Could you give me a few days?" "Of course." That evening he talked with Jennifer. "What do you think?" Jennifer smiled. "David, you've been part of this company for 15 years, and now you saved it. You deserve to be CFO." He would accept the offer. A month later, David started work as Pinnacle Industries' new CFO. His first job was to identify all the damage Bennett had caused and start the recovery process. David, who received the SEC award, bought a new house with Jennifer with the money. He also made plans to start his own financial consulting company. Bennett's trial lasted 6 months. He was finally sentenced to 15 years in prison. During the trial, David testified as a witness. Bennett's lawyer asked David, "Mr. Morrison, what happened to your loyalty to my client?" David answered, "My loyalty was to the company and justice, not to one person." Bennett looked at David, but they didn't make eye contact. After the trial ended, David spoke to the media. "This incident showed us that no one is above the law. As financial advisors, our duty is to protect the company and shareholders." 2 years later, David's financial consulting company had over 50 employees. It specialized in detecting corporate fraud. David has an appreciation certificate from the SEC hanging on his office wall. Below it is an old photo taken with Bennett, as a reminder, because David had learned that trust should be mutual, and sometimes the greatest courage is taking the risk to do the right thing. Bennett would be thinking every day in prison about how right David's decision was, but it was too late now. One day, David told his daughter Emma, "Sometimes people trust you, but you have to trust them too. If this trust is one-sided, sooner or later it collapses." Emma asked, "But didn't you trust Mr. Bennett?" David smiled. "I did, until I learned I shouldn't. And the most important lesson David taught was this: a financial advisor is not just someone who works with numbers. Sometimes to protect the company, you need to protect it even from the person at the top." Bennett's story was the most difficult period of David's life, but it was also the period he was most proud of. because he had done the right thing, and in the end he had seen the reward for this righteousness, not the way Bennett thought, but the way justice wanted. Today David is 52 years old, a successful entrepreneur and respected financial expert. Pinnacle Industries is now one of the most transparent companies in the industry. And every morning when David comes to his office, he looks at that photo on the wall and remembers this. Honesty can sometimes be expensive, but it's never as expensive as lies. Bennett's 15-year prison sentence is the best example of this.